You are listening to a inspirational interview on the Faithful Sinners. Faithful Sinners, thank you for joining us today. I just want to introduce our special guest, Joey Lukas, who is here today to help us go through what we have as our vision, which is sin, which share, inspire, and navigate. So through what Joey is going to talk with us today about, will hopefully help inspire and give some of you folks that are out there some direction where you may be challenged in life as well. So Joey, thanks for joining me today. As far as these virtual interviews, it's not as fun to do them virtually as it would be to be hanging out and sitting down with you.
Yeah.
Because I have to admit, you are a family member, you're a cousin.
Yeah.
And as far as time with Joey, I never get enough time, and it's too bad we're almost 1,200 miles away from each other.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's too bad.
but I appreciate you joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, as far as what I wanted to discuss is, you've had an opportunity in your life to go through a lot of experiences. I mean, I myself have had a variety of things that I've gone through, but I've learned through you on many occasions, maybe unbeknownst to you, on different ways to handle myself in situations, especially as of late. So, I think what you've experienced in life could definitely benefit people on many different fronts, but let's talk about a little bit of just in general, because we don't Bible thump here, but we do have I have a Christian belief. Tell me a little bit about what your perspective is as far as faith in that role.
Well, I'm a Christian. No lie about that. No going around that. I'm a Christian. I believe I'm a biblical Christian. Um, so I guess that's where my faith lines up is through the Bible and through my faith, through the counsel of the Holy Spirit and trusting in that. Does that make
Were you
sense?
always like that?
Um, I wouldn't say that I was always like that. Um, when I started finding God probably in middle school when I went to a Baptist school. I think that's where I had my real encounter with God, like real started really encountering God. But I was introduced to God as a little child through the Catholic Church, but I just didn't feel that connection as I did when I started real talking to Christ and through God through my own personal prayers, instead of like ritual prayers and
Gotcha.
opening that door. Yeah.
Yeah, ritual prayers definitely are the things that were a distractor for me. It didn't really bring me into communication. So yeah, that's a big point. Having
Yeah.
personal connection, not just something that's rote.
Yeah. But as far as like my faith, like if you want me to talk about like my walk in faith, is that that I'm getting at? Yeah. So I'll say that, uh, I even though I knew God in middle school, I did walk away from him and I did do my own thing. I'm not sure if I was confident in the fact that I was taught once saved, always saved. And I just thought I could just be free to do whatever I want, which kind of led me down, Tim, which kind of led me down a bad road. And I no longer believe that. I no longer believe that. And I will say, I mean, yes, I feel like I've been really blessed by God and that I've been able to turn my life around. For everybody listening, um, I've spent 8 years incarcerated, in and out of prison. When I was in prison, I joined a prison gang, and I feel like this is kind of where my life started turning around at 30. Because when I was in prison, I joined a prison gang, and we would meet at a faith-based place called Asatru, which is kind of like Odinism. And we go there and we meet, and that's where we would have church, and I feel like I was really cursed from me going there. Maybe I was only 25. I don't think I was probably like 27, 28, not quite 30. But I feel like I was really cursed. I cursed myself by going there and practicing these rituals and witchcraft, pretty much in my eyes, doing sacrifices and throwing ruins. And I think that it it opened a door into my life that allowed me to be attacked. And I believe that as Christians, we are the evil one really waits for an opportunity. I think he just really waits for opportunity in anybody's life. But being a Christian, I had that wall of protection up. But then when I went to these rituals, I feel like I let that wall down and I actually got hurt. I like, that's why I say I feel like I was cursed. I ended up getting hurt in the gym while I was in prison, and it was a progressive injury to my back, and it left me pretty much in a wheelchair, you know. And it wasn't, and then I got out, and it didn't get better, and I was trying to use drugs to cover up the pain, and it just brought me low. It just really, really brought me low. And if you want, Tim, I could keep going.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as this time you mentioned in the incarceration, getting going into jail, was that before or was that after the time with the military? Because you were spent
Okay,
some
yeah.
time in the
Yeah, so
military.
that was after. Well, I guess before and after. I guess, I went to I think it's like 16. So after middle school, I got kicked out of every single school I've ever been to, elementary, two middle schools, two high schools, um, got my GED, and then that was in 2007.
So you actually stepped up and got your GED, though. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
in
a step.
2006, well, I was in juvenile detention. And then I joined the Marine Corps. And maybe back then I hated it, but if I could go back now today, I'd go back in a heartbeat. It was just, I just had the attitude. I think I was too young when I was 17. I just had the attitude that no other man could really tell me what to do. What do you mean you can tell me I can't leave base when I can do whatever I want? And, but it really helped me form my attitude as a man. And I guess maybe, maybe got me in trouble a little bit because I really kind of held myself to a higher standard. I remember being in the back of a cop car. We were at homecoming, and I was already a Marine because I got kicked out and joined in the 11th grade. And I remember just kind of being drinking and talking trash to the police officer, telling him I could shoot better. And that was just kind of my attitude. I felt like I could run faster, I could shoot better, that I was better trained, and that I could really do whatever I want. And I kind of took that to entitled, and I excused my behavior a lot in that. And I just kind of felt like I could do whatever I want. And yes, at this time, I did believe in God and I did believe in Christ, but I had the attitude that was taught to me, that once saved, always saved. And I no longer believe that. Um, but I don't think that you can be saved while you walk in a path of sin. If you're choosing to walk in sin, I don't think that you can be saved. Um,
I would
but
agree with you on that one.
yeah. So I yeah, so then yeah, my life just kind of went really downward spiral. Um I'm not sure if it came about. I wish I could say where it came about because even before the military, I kind of had an attitude. Like I said, I got kicked out of two elementary schools, two middle schools. No, one elementary school, two middle schools, and two high schools. you know? So I guess
Mm.
I had a problem, and I think maybe that even stemmed from a speech impediment. But whatever it was, like any other man, I had a chip on my shoulder, and it's something that I had to deal with. And I guess I was cocky, and it took God. I stayed cocky. I stayed cocky till I was probably 28 years old, where even in a closed custody maximum security prison. I was cocky, and it was and that's why I joined a prison game, because I wanted to be a part, like I want to be up there,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
when I do
they give you the feeling of status and and
status,
inclusion.
exactly. Yep,
Yeah.
and the inclusion, like, and that's something that I kind of felt like I missed. But doing that, I'm not gonna say like I still got my brothers. I got one a job. He works for me. He knows I'm a Christian. I got some other ones have turned to faith. And some of them are doing real great. And some of them are doing real bad. But that was but that going when it just happened to be that where we met was Truth. That was our meeting spot, and um I could have I could have probably went there and not done the rituals. And I think when I did the rituals at Truth, that's what opened up the door. And I don't know any of this for a fact, but I'm just going to tell you how I believe the Spirit has led me to believe what I believed happened. And then when I was in prison, when I was on my high horse, I got hurt, and I felt vulnerable. I mean, I was fine, and I got through it fine. And when I got out, I still had the pain, and it reminded me of uh, that verse, when Apostle Paul talks about the thorn in his side, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
And because I asked and I prayed for him to take it away from me, but he didn't. Um, and then when I got out in 2019, yeah, 2019, I got out and paroled to St. Paul, Minneapolis. With the pain, I fell into meth and heroin again. I guess meth more. But heroin was around, and it just really destroyed my mind, destroyed my body, destroyed my morals. I mean, I've done things I don't ever. I wish I could forget, and just all drug induced. And I've hurt people that are close to through that, and it came down to a warrant came out for me 3 days before George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, and I was wanted from parole during that time already, and I was just kind of cruising, um, for back of letter term, trap house to trap house, just hanging out, with my friends and sleeping on the couch and getting high when the riots kicked off. And then I really felt like I really kind of put myself in a bad position because Uh, it was really, I mean, I'm not going to apologize to the facts are facts. It was really anti-whitey in Minneapolis during that
Mm.
time. And I had long hair. I think you see me during that time. I'm not sure if I had shaved, and then I shaved my head because a warrant came out, and then they killed George Floyd, and now I'm tattooed and shaved head, not looking the best part. And
Yeah,
the
that's
people that,
true. I guess at that time there was a
yeah,
lot of perceptions that were
oh, yeah,
people holding
it
to.
was bad. It was bad. I during that time, I stayed heavily with the Native American population in Minneapolis and on reservations, and
I
a
remember
lot.
that. I
You
remember.
remember that? Yeah,
I,
you came and see me up on one of the St. Corey reservation. You came and see me at.
correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, but I seen during that time, I seen a lot of my friends turn their back on me, whether for just because of my skin color, and because everything that was happening. Um, and is people that I went through the mud with, and then pretty soon, I was I had a couple spots, but I remember I destroyed my stolen car I had, and I'm walking down the street. I don't have any shoes, and I felt like God spoke to me. I could still remember I was still over there all the time because I do solar over in Minneapolis a lot, right over off like 35th and 5th. I was right over there, 35th Avenue South and 5th Avenue, right by kind of
The
Lake
best
Street.
part of town.
Yeah, best part of town, right by George Floyd Square. I remember I was walking down the street, and I felt God spoke to me, and he said, "Joe, you're gonna die. You're gonna die like this. This is how you're gonna die. If you don't do something, you're gonna die." And I sat down on some church steps, and I started crying, and I called my dad. My dad's been ignoring my calls. He didn't want nothing to do with me. I treated my mom like garbage, and she came to help me. You know, my drug addiction or my lifestyle too is just a problem, creating a lot of problems for our family. And as and I was living super selfishly, and God, He broke me down. He broke me down to where I could barely walk, where I had nothing. Um, where I had nothing, and it just was it was I felt really low. I've never been so depressed in my life where I wanted to die so bad. Everything that I thought that I lived for in prison, talking to my son every day, trying to build that relationship up with him, and then I get out and I just go back to shooting up drugs. You
And
know.
speak of that, now you mentioned your son. How old was your son at this time?
So it's at 2019. He's 13 now, so like around 7 or 8, and I already have been gone out of his life for 5 or 6 years. You know, and then
That's tough. I mean,
tough,
when anytime I look at, this time away from my kids in my new divorce situation,
it's
it's
tough.
really difficult, and I can't imagine some of the challenges that you went through, with not having access. So,
Yeah, it's tough, and and it gives me compassion. To get sidetracked right now. It gives me compassion in my family dynamic right now with my wife's ex and the child they shared together that I'm raising as my own. It gives me compassion to deal with him. And, he told me today, he said, "I'm going to church today." And he was all excited to tell Presley that he was going to church today. So I can see through compassion and understanding and through my life experiences, God uses everything that the devil meant for bad and turns it for good. And I mean, we can get more into that as we go, but here, let me kind of finish my testimony. So yeah, pretty much my dad bought me a bus ticket because they're scared for me. I was wanted for first degree aggravated robbery and a parole violation and 3 stolen cars in 2 different states already, Wisconsin and Minnesota. So my dad buys me a bus ticket to Fort Myers, Florida, where he's at, or Cape Coral. And he said he has my son. He says, "Why don't you come down, spend some time with your son, and then turn yourself in?" In my mind, I'm like, "Dad, you live on the Gulf of Mexico. Like that's all right. I'm coming. That's just a gateway out of here. And my messed up delusional thinking. So I got there and I spent 3 days. I spent 3 days before I got locked up. And I went out on my boat, and um yeah, I got locked up. So I got arrested. I got arrested on the Gulf of Mexico, and I had these dreams that I was gonna take my dad's houseboat, and I was planning and I was gonna go live on the islands. But God had other plans, and so I got arrested. They threw me in the Lee County jail during COVID, and it was horrible. Conditions were horrible.
wow,
They treated
that
you
was
like
during COVID.
it was during COVID. Yep. So so yeah, I guess the part of the conditions is part of my testimony, I guess. So they put 4 of us in a 2-man cell for what they call that when like where they just kind of put you in, and I'm not sure if it's called like sanitation or whatever, but they put you in a room and they separate you for so long before you can go to the general population in case you have COVID, so you can get over the COVID. So they throw everybody in a room they threw everybody in a room for 2 weeks before they sent us to population, and the rooms that were available were the seg unit rooms, so the toilet only flushed every 45 minutes, and there was only one bunk in there. and there was 4 of us. Um, and then one of the guys that were with me in my room, had irritable bowel system, IBS,
Oh my
and,
God.
yeah, and, I fit in fine, in Florida, so I met people right away, and I fit in fine, but this kid in my, my cell, he had IBS, he couldn't eat. We'd eat, and as we're eating, he had to use a bathroom, and the toilet wouldn't flush. So I knew that he was a skinny kid, nice dude, give his shirt off his back, and, he would walk around, and he'd be praying all day, and he'd be praising God in the storm, and it was really motivating for me to see as a Christian that had walked away from his faith, and that's what started turning my life around right there. And then, and I just kind of seen something in this dude, and
Was
I'd
he
stick
real
up for him.
preachy? Was he real preachy to you, or
He wasn't real preachy to me, I guess, but he was more like with his testimony, with his storm, he was praising God in it. And he would be thankful in all things. It wasn't like he was telling me like, "Hey Joe, you're living wrong." He was living by example, and he was living by faith. And then one day he asked me, he said, "Hey, can I pray for your back? Because I mean, I'm still in horrible pain. I can't stand longer than 15 minutes and I'm crippled." He said, "Joey, can I pray for your back?" I said, "You know what?" I said, "I've tried everything else. I've tried Oxycontin. I've tried shots. I'm supposed to get back surgery. You know what? Yeah, go ahead. Put your hand on my back and pray for it. If that's going to satisfy you, go ahead." And he did that. And I'm not going to say that I was healed right there because I wasn't. Or maybe I was blinded to it. But within the next couple of days, he went to a different pod and then I went to a different pod. And I remember being on the phone with my mom and I hear, "You have 1 minute remaining," which means I've been on the phone for 15 minutes already. And I'm like, "Mom, you won't believe it." And she says, "What?" I said, "I don't feel any pain in my back right now. I've been standing this whole time." And I probably was on the phone with her 2 phone calls or whatever, but I was standing my whole time. I didn't feel any pain in my back. Um, yeah. And then it clicked. Then it clicked. And God put it in my heart. And I was like, man. And I even think that it was a part, and I never felt pain after that in my back ever again. I've never like maybe this, not my injury there has never been rehurt. I think this last week I irritated my sciatic nerve, but not the same injury, and it's fine again. I mean, before that, I've never felt any pain, and it's been that was in 2020. That's been 5 years. It's been 5 years. It's 5 years actually because it was during the summer 5 years ago when I seen you on St. Croix reservation.
oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's
It
crazy.
was probably around this time of the year too,
Probably
actually.
around this time of the year. Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
Well,
So,
as far as that time, is that when the pain went away? Is that when you were able to kind of start stepping away from the drug stuff too, as much, or
well, I was locked up. So I was
so?
locked up.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, I'm already sobering up. I did, we did, a little bit, but it was like Suboxone or something that I wouldn't ever do, and I don't think I'd ever do ever again because I just was throwing up. I don't know. It's not my thing. But yeah, I'd say that this is when really kind of stepped away from drugs, and then I started praying, because there was no denying that it was through prayer that I was healed. Um, and then I started praying a lot, and God started answering all my prayers. He started answering all my prayers. He told me, he said, "Joey, to take it to trial." I mean, I already gave the confession. I was like, I got caught red-handed stealing crab traps. That's what I got arrested for, and that's a felony down
Mhm.
there. And
Yeah.
molesting crab traps, is a charge. Molesting crab traps. So, but
Nice term.
Yeah, but I figured, with everything going on in Minneapolis, if I just kind of push this out, maybe they'd forget about me. I don't think they would have put a warrant out for me, um, if George Floyd would have died 3 days earlier. I don't think that the warrant would ever been issued because it was, to me, it was, pretty petty. It wasn't like I robbed a store. My buddy got in a fight and I jumped in for a quick second because he was losing. And the kid that he got in a fight with, I mean, it was probably unprovoked. I know it was unprovoked attack from my buddy, but the kid that he got in a fight with said that we stole his phone. I didn't take his phone, you know, and I never talked to the police, never, not once. They identified me and only me through facial recognition, and I never gave a statement. I got a lawyer. So, but anyways, besides the point, then I started praying, and the Lord told me, He said, "Take it to trial, take it to trial." So I just started getting comfortable in Florida, and in the middle of the night, and I was tested in Florida too, but that's a whole different story. In the middle of the night, they came and got me, and I said, "Well, where are you guys bringing me?" And they said, "Minnesota's here to pick you up." And I said, "Well, I got trial here," and they said, "No, your charges were dropped." So the Lord, I was listening to the Lord. And he told me, I felt for sure that he told me to take it to trial, and it was dropped. Now Minnesota's coming to get me.
Hmm.
And I start praying, and I get there, and my dad comes up on some money somehow, and he says, "Joey," he says, "I'm in a position where I can help you right now." He says, "Do you want to get bail or do you want a lawyer?" And I said, "I need a lawyer." Of course I want to get out, but I knew I needed a lawyer.
Right.
And so he came up on a lawyer for me, and then I kept praying, I kept praying, I kept praying, and then um, a friend of mine, an old friend, I don't talk to her anymore, um, was a bail agent, and she got me out through my dad. My dad came up on some more money, and yeah, then he was able to work out a deal with the bail agency to get me out if I turned myself into Teen Challenge. You
Oh,
know,
that's how you got into Teen
That's how I
Challenge. 'Cause,
got
yeah,
that's how I
that's
got in Team Challenge. So actually when I was in Minneapolis, so I'm in Minneapolis and I'm hanging out one of the pods, and another guy touched my life here. And he was one of the Serenials in Minneapolis, just tatted. I still talk to him. Tatted from like the eyes down. And he looked like a bad dude, but he is super funny. His name's Snapper. Super funny dude. So just a nice guy. And he's like, "Hey, I just got out of Team Challenge. It's a great place, full of love." He said, "I could get you hooked up." I said, "They're not gonna accept me." I said, "They didn't accept me when I had terroristic threats. They're not gonna accept me when I got first degree aggravated robbery." And they said, "Well, let God work, let God decide." So they came and visit me, and Snapper, he turned me on to Teen Challenge, and I got into Teen Challenge, you know, and he's still doing good. He's friends with my wife on Facebook, and I just seen today picture of him with his kids, and he's still doing good. I love that brother, and for that, and for motivating me to go into Teen Challenge, and opening, getting the people. So I mean, God was just working. He was working in my dad's life, putting it on his heart to help me because my dad never bought me a lawyer ever. You know what I'm saying? He might have bailed me out one time, but not for a charge like this. And so he just really, and I thank my dad for always, and my dad's been an excellent role model to me on how to be a father. But but uh, yeah, so I got out. And the first thing, so I thought, everybody thought, like, all right, then something else happened. It even gets crazier. So Wisconsin says they're not coming to get me now. They said they're not coming to get me. It was on the LCO. So Sawyer County, Wisconsin. They said they're not coming to get me is a stolen car. I was like, okay, weird, but it's COVID. They're not coming to get me. And then I was in Minneapolis. I had another stolen car in St. Paul. So we paid my bail in Minneapolis. And St. Paul decides they're not coming to get me for the stolen car. So I think like at this time, anything violent, and that kind of didn't help my situation. Anything violent, they're just sending you. They said they're gonna deal with it later. Anything non-violent, I mean, they'll deal with it later. Anything violent, they'll keep you in jail. Anything non-violent, in Minnesota's law, down south, they don't care. They're slapping you. But in Minnesota and Minneapolis, they were, and St. Paul, that anything non-violent, and that's why it got really bad here. And I'm not gonna lie, it got really bad here for a while because of
Hmm.
that, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. The Twin Cities, they went through a pretty big upheaval. They're still a little off kilter up there.
you're still off kilter, but it's getting better. I'd say it's getting a lot better, and but they're still off kilter 100%. But yeah, so then I end up on the street. You know, I end up on the street. Of course, I wasn't calling the bail agent friend of mine because she told me that I gotta go to Team Challenge. So I call somebody else, one of my other friends, and she comes picks me up. She brings me to her house, but I don't know what it was in me. I was like, I stole her car. She picked me up. I took her car. She was inside. I was like, you know what? She started acting funny, and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to find a ride. And I was like, I can't find a ride anywhere. So I took her car. So then, and I went right back to the hood. I went right back over to the south side and started shooting up. And after God opened all these doors, here I was with the needle in my arm again. Right there, in the Native American projects, in South Minneapolis with the needle in my arm, shooting up heroin, not shooting up heroin, shooting up meth. And I remember I walked into the store on 24th and Cedar Avenue South, and I walked out, and there's a kid behind me, and I get in my stolen car right in front of the store, and I start preparing to get high. And the kid that was behind me, I'm watching him in my mirror, and I'm just watching, and I watch these other kids walk up on him. They're like, "Hey, what's your name?" And before he could even say anything, just hear boom, 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 shot him 5 times in the chest, and he's like right here. And I remember just like I was like, "Should you duck?" And then I was thinking it'd be pointless. I mean, you're either gonna get shot now or you're not. You know what I'm saying? So I just is like, and then I remember looking at I watched him drop, and it was crazy because I could see him turn gray before he hit the ground. And I didn't even move. To be honest, I didn't even move my car. I just continued doing what I was doing. The police came up to my window. They knocked on my window. This is how out of it I was. They knocked on my window and said, "You gotta move your car. This is a crime scene now." So I moved down a block, and I got my whole stuff. I'm just sitting right there. I'm getting high with my buddies in the car. They come knock on my door, and they said, "No, you gotta move farther." So then we went back, and I remember the next morning I wake up like in my mind. I was like, they didn't really affect me at that point because I was like, it comes with the game. You know what I'm saying? Like I was watching through that time. I watched a lot of people die, and some other time we can go into that. But through this time, I've grown numb to watching people die, and I just thought, it comes with the life, and that's just what you choose. So I woke up on a concrete floor in North Minneapolis the next day, and I turned and I grabbed my phone or somebody's phone. I'm just curious, so I
And this
pull up the
again,
news
this was after all those doors were open for you.
after all those doors are open. And after everything was open, I just turned my back on God, just like that, healed everything, and just run right back to it. And then this is what hit me. It's when I grabbed my phone and I looked and I pulled up the news article and I seen that the kid that died, he was 15 years old or 14, 15 or 14. I think he might have been 14 years old. And then that's when it hit me. He says, "What?" And then it's like, what has happened to you that you've come so numb that you can watch a kid die and you can just say it's just part of the game? And then
Mm.
the Holy Spirit hit me. The Holy Spirit hit me then. I'm not sure if it was the Holy Spirit hitting me or me being afraid that bail bondsman was going to revoke my bail, but I called my bail bondsman, told her she could pick me up if she brought me some drugs.
Really
And
interesting.
yeah, and that I would go to Teen Challenge. So that's what she did. And then when we got to the highway, I said, "You got my drugs or not?" And I said, "Edward, I'm gonna jump out the car." She gave me my drugs, and then she was really upset about it, and then drove me up to Teen Challenge. And that's when I got sober, and that was the last day I used meth, and or heroin or anything like that. That was it, and I haven't looked back, and Teen Challenge, God was performing miracles for me. Obviously, right now I'm free. I'm off probation. I'm off parole.
Have
You
a
know,
couple of amazing kids.
got yeah, I've got 3 more amazing kids than I did back then. I have my own house. I have a good job with a work truck that they pay for my gas. My wife is able to stay home and raise the kids right now and go to school. And, God's just been really opening doors, and God's been, and there's, and that's really my testimony. And I could go to more like, yeah, I still talk to my friends that are in the prison gang. And, I mean, not the ones that are doing bad, of course, but I remember when I got to Teen Challenge, I sat down next to somebody and I noticed he had the same tattoo as me. We're in the same prison gang. And I was
Hmm.
like, "Hey," and I show him my tattoo. And I said, "What's up?" And then he's like, "This place is good." But I wanted to listen to a word that that dude had said if that dude would have covered up his tattoos. So if he would have been like, "Hey, I'm changing my life. I'm gonna cover these tattoos." If I would have walked in, sat down on that couch or whatever, and noticed that he had that tattoo, that I have a tattoo or patch, if I would
Hmm.
have noticed that he covered that patch to change his life around, I would not have listened to a word that guy said, because in my mind I would have been, he's either a rat, or he's all bad. He was forced to cover his stuff. You don't just cover it.
Right.
And that's what
That's true. You don't just cover it. It's part of life, and you
so it's
and
a
you
part of the
learn
life. And
retain
that's
it.
why I've never covered any of my tattoos. And I think through that, I've been able to now, as Christians, or as a Christian, it's my mission to bring people to Christ through my testimony. And I feel like I've been blessed abundantly because of that. And like even right now I got a buddy, he's part of the same prison gang I got out, and he's not a Christian. But he's able to see every day what God's doing in my life. He's able to see how I'm blessed. I'm able to share testimonies with him. And and the tattoos I have opened up a door for me to reach people, and it's not just about bringing them to Christ, like to better their lives, and to
Exactly.
help them walk through it, and I'm able to reach a certain dynamic of people that aren't. I remember when I hired this dude, my manager or my field supervisor called me like, "He did 7 years for robbery." And I said, "Have you ever looked me up?" Like, what? Like, 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 "What do you mean he does?" And they're like, "Oh no, I guess he never did a background check on you." I was like, "Well, yeah, and I'm one of your best workers, I mean, so I'm the only one with the truck. Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously doing something right. My numbers are good." I said, "Just give this dude a chance. Put him on my team. I'll take responsibility for him." And now he's working towards his electrical hours, and he's got some from back in the day, and hopefully he'll be able to test out pretty soon, and that will open a whole different door. And it's just when you got people that are trying to uplift you instead of trying to put a bag in your hand, it's just, and then do it in Christ's name. Everything I do, it's all glory to God. And that's I really kind of just kind of I'd love to be like, man, my kids are amazing. Yeah, I'm doing a great job. Well, it's not me because I know where I was his whole life. And
Hmm.
it's not
Yeah.
his mom because I know his mom, you know, it's all God. He just got back from church camp yesterday. And so yeah, I mean that's just my testimony in a short. If you
Well, what I would say is, a big thing that you referenced there towards the end, and we can kind of finish on this, but you walked a tough life. You had a lot of things that you don't necessarily have pride in, but you don't look at them and walk away in shame in them either. You hold them as why you are what you're doing now, and it is a badge that you use, like you said, to communicate. And the biggest thing that I'm trying to do with what we're doing, this whole podcast structure is to help us all understand that we all go through stuff. And some people are different, some people are harder, but the only way we grow through it is if we communicate, we share, and we're willing to take some personal responsibilities behind things. And you've definitely done a hell of a lot, Joey. I've been amazed. I've known you since you were real little kid. I partied with you and hung out with you when you were a younger kid. And I've been amazed, to see the man you've grown into, and I'm super proud of the fact that you were, open to share this with me today. So, you mentioned a couple of things. We will probably do some follow-on stuff here and there. I think that would be awesome to do, but we'll do that in person, because I'll actually be up that way here in another month or so. So we'll
okay,
figure that one out.
yeah, that'd be cool.
All right. Well, thanks again, Joey. Thank you very
Yep.
much for
Thank
taking
you,
time
Tim.
today.
I'll talk
All
to you. I
right.
love you, man.
I love you too, brother.
Bye.
So that was Joey Lukas, cousin of mine up in the Midwest. Like I mentioned, I've known him all of his life. Is amazing kid that's gone through some incredible challenges. I'm sure there's many things that I'm not necessarily aware of either. But what I'd like to say following this is if you listen to the story, if you listen what's in his heart, he's honest, he's not ashamed. He reflected on what he had experienced and grew through it. Um, he reached out. He used his faith and found a way to guide his path. And in his situation, and in many situations, it was Jesus Christ that did that. Um, you may not, as I have referenced, have that same faith, but you have that capability within your communities, within your relationships, within your friendships, to find a way to grow through, not just get beaten down by the things you may be dealing with at this time. Never give up. And please, again, share with friends and your family. Repost this and please follow us, so we can all sin better together. Thank you for listening to our inspirational interview on the Faithful Sinners. And make sure to check us out on thefaithfulsinners.com and like and follow us on your favorite podcast and social media stations.